When Walter and I went to visit my in-laws, my mother-in-law, who came to pick us up at the airport, said, "You can't ride in the car, so you must walk home." She snorted and turned up her nose. It's a 3-hour journey one way, and though I'm confident in my physical strength, this treatment was too much. I almost cried, but someone reached out to help me. In the end, it was mother-in-law who regretted it. My name is Jennifer. I'm 30 years old and married. I love mountain climbing, and I met my husband Walter, who is 2 years younger, in a college mountain club. Walter is handsome and popular with women, and when he asked me out, I wondered why me? According to Walter, Jennifer moves forward silently even on the hardest routes without complaining, and I like that about her. Walter works for a well-known corporation and earns a high salary. We've been living happily together since our marriage, just like our student days, but there's one thing that bothers me. Oh, it's a call from Mom. Sorry, I'll go talk to her. During dinner, Walter said that and hurried into his room with his mobile phone. Mother-in-law calls Walter frequently, about once every 2 days. Mother-in-law seems to adore her excellent son, and Walter is sweet to mother-in-law, making me suspect he's a mama's boy. But since she raised Walter with care, I think I should value her too. However, it seems our feelings are different. It happened before our marriage, when we went to greet my in-laws. Jennifer is 2 years older than my son, almost 30, huh? Mother-in-law seemed displeased with having an older daughter-in-law and looked unhappy throughout. Father-in-law said, "It's fine, isn't it? Love conquers all. Jennifer seems reliable, and she's perfect for Walter, who has a weak side." But that seemed to displease her even more. Mother-in-law seemed unable to oppose father-in-law directly, so she decided to bully me without him noticing. "Oh dear, I'm sorry, Jennifer. It seems the snacks I served you have gone bad. I'll replace them right away." When mother-in-law intentionally harassed me, she would open her eyes wide, snort, and twist her lips. I had become like a zoologist, able to distinguish her expressions. "Oh, it's okay, I can eat it." I smiled and cut off the spoiled part of the dried fruit and ate it. I had learned survival skills in the mountain club. Eat what you can of the food. Father-in-law and Walter said, "Haha, that's just like Jennifer." Father-in-law added, laughing, "Honey Mom, that's not good. Don't serve Jennifer something like that." The atmosphere remained pleasant, but... Hee hee, I was careless, I'm sorry. While laughing, I didn't miss her brief, sharp look and a click of her tongue. There were other instances, like when she said, "Look, I went to Italy last week and bought souvenirs," and pulled out a high-quality branded tie for Walter. For me, it was a flimsy t-shirt with a fake-looking logo that was obviously a knockoff brand. "Come on, try on the tie. Jennifer, you try on the shirt too." At that moment, mother-in-law's face showed that familiar expression, and I realized it was another harassment. Now? I can't wear a tie with casual clothes. I'm not up for it right now either. I forced a smile to keep the atmosphere light, but inside I was fed up. Afterward, I only used that t-shirt for things like weeding in the summer or as a joke to show my friends in photos. I really hate even looking at it. These harassments were subtle enough that only I would recognize them as such, and when I told Walter, he would just say, "Mom's a bit quirky, so forgive her." However, the malice I felt little by little gradually wore me down. The town where we live is about an hour's drive from my in-laws, and the fact that we could easily visit them if we wanted to was also a source of gloom. Then one day, "Jennifer, I'm sorry for the sudden news, but I've been transferred. It starts next month, so please prepare." Walter's sudden transfer was decided. Walter apologized, but I was secretly relieved to have an excuse to distance ourselves from my in-laws. Plus, the new location was very close to my parents' home, so it felt like moving from away to home. Got it. Leave the preparations to me. I'll ask my family for help too. I happily proceeded with the preparations. Now, I can get away from mother-in-law's petty harassment. I was anxious about our new life, but 80% of my heart was occupied by the feeling of liberation from mother-in-law. The move was completed, and I thought I could finally distance myself from mother-in-law, but... Hello, Jennifer? Where have you been without answering the phone? You're not neglecting my son while hanging out at your parents' house again, are you? It was another call from mother-in-law. I wanted to sigh heavily but held back and replied, I'm sorry, I couldn't answer the phone earlier. I was in line at the checkout. Walter might be tired in this unfamiliar environment, so I want to support him with nutritious meals. Mother-in-law's calls started coming every 2 days. Although we saw each other less, we talked more. Most of the time, it was mother-in-law unilaterally making snide remarks. My son is sensitive, but I wonder if someone as thick-skinned as Jennifer can understand him? My son's high school girlfriend was a delicate and fragile girl, but his taste has changed quite a bit, hasn't it? And so on, saying only things that would make me uncomfortable. Does mother-in-law have no other outlet for her stress? I felt like I had become a trash can labeled stress outlet. What hurt the most were the snide comments about children. Jennifer, you're already 30, aren't you? What do you think about children? I wonder if you, being older than my son, can have a normal child? I was shocked that someone would say such a thing in this day and age, but since it was something I had been concerned about recently, tears flowed after I hung up the phone. What does mother-in-law think of me? Does she think I won't be hurt by whatever she says? After that, the calls kept coming frequently, but when I responded only with safe answers to avoid making waves, perhaps she found it boring and not worth bullying, so the number of calls gradually decreased. I was truly relieved from the bottom of my heart. Then, on New Year's Day the following year, my husband and I headed to my in-laws' house. They were going to pick us up from the airport. Hey, Walter, Jennifer. Long time no see. Father-in-law waved and greeted us. I was honestly dreading seeing mother-in-law, but father-in-law's friendliness was a relief. Happy New Year, Mom and Dad. Happy New Year to you both. Happy New Year, I'm glad you came. Happy New Year, Walter, good to see you. We exchanged New Year's greetings, but mother-in-law didn't even look at me. Perhaps she was angry about my cold response to her frequent calls. It was an awkward relationship. I was thinking about how to get through this situation. You must be tired from the journey. Shall we take a break at the airport cafe? Father-in-law cheerfully suggested, seemingly unaware of the tense atmosphere between mother-in-law and me. That's a good idea. Wasn't there a cafe on the second floor? Walter responded cheerfully, and we moved to a cafe inside the airport. Should I drive back? No, I'm still an active driver. While the men were chatting away, mother-in-law and I were silent. Excuse me, I'm going to the restroom. After ordering, I said that and got up from my seat. Oh, maybe I'll go too. Mother-in-law said, standing up to follow me. I had a bad feeling about this. Just as the entrance to the women's restroom came into view, mother-in-law, walking behind me, said, You can't ride in the car, so why don't you walk back? Not understanding what she meant, I turned to look at mother-in-law, and there was that expression again. We're going back as a family of 3. You're a stranger, aren't you? I couldn't believe my ears. Walk back? From here to my in-laws' house? How far could that be? and calling her son's wife a stranger. While I was frozen in shock, mother-in-law continued to throw words at me. I was kind enough to call you frequently, but unlike Walter, you only respond coldly. Living near your parents' house has gone to your head. I don't want to think of you as my daughter-in-law. You're a stranger, a stranger. Mother-in-law's voice was getting louder. I was shocked, but I didn't want to argue in public, so I answered in a small voice. Yes. I understand. I didn't feel like going back to where Walter and father-in-law were, so I headed for the airport exit, plodding along. Even though she told me to walk back, this was an airport. There must be taxis and buses. I could go as far as I could and walk from there. But more than that, what face should I make when I safely arrive at my in-laws' house by walking? How should I spend the few days of my stay? That weighed more heavily on my mind. For now, I searched on my mobile phone for transportation to my in-laws' house. There was a bus leaving in just 10 minutes. But that bus wouldn't go near my in-laws' house, so from there, it seemed I would have to walk. It might take about 3 hours in total. 3 hours. I can walk that. With my legs trained in mountain climbing, it's not impossible. But there's a difference between walking for mountain climbing and walking because I'm not allowed in the car due to harassment. Tears welled up in my eyes. Was it my fault? If I had been pleasant on the phone even after being told such things, would this have happened? As I was walking along, lost in thought, I was suddenly tapped on the shoulder from behind. Jennifer, why are you walking here? The voice was father-in-law's. Didn't my wife say something to you at the entrance to the restroom? I was going to the restroom too, and I saw you and my wife talking, and then you started to go somewhere, so I followed you. Looking at father-in-law's kind face, the tears that had been welling up in my eyes overflowed and ran down my cheeks. Jennifer! What on earth happened? I decided to tell father-in-law the truth. Actually, I told father-in-law exactly what mother-in-law had said, and he became angrier than I had ever seen him. How dare she say that to my son's wife? Then he said something I never expected. I'll walk with you, Jennifer. With that, father-in-law stood in front of me and started walking. Father-in-law! Don't worry, I enjoy mountain climbing, and I used to climb a lot with Walter when he was little. A 3-hour one-way walk is nothing. Indeed, father-in-law's stride was firm, not what you'd expect from a 62-year-old. Come on, let's go. We didn't tell Walter we were leaving, is that okay? I finally remembered that. In my shock at mother-in-law's words, I had just left. Walter will be fine, she'll probably talk him into waiting. I'll contact him. With that, father-in-law took out his mobile phone. It seemed he was texting mother-in-law. He told her he was walking back with me and that the car keys were in his bag. As we waited for the bus, father-in-law's mobile phone rang. Father-in-law answered, his voice filled with restrained anger. It must have been mother-in-law on the other end. I heard what you said to Jennifer. If you're going to say that, I won't ride in the car either. I could hear mother-in-law's panicked voice shouting from the other end. That's not it. She said she wanted to walk for exercise. How brazen. I was more dumbfounded than angry. We'll talk when we get home. Father-in-law hung up and shoved his mobile phone into his pocket. Perhaps because father-in-law's mobile phone was unreachable, mine started ringing next. It's definitely mother-in-law. Father-in-law and I looked at each other. What does she want now, to tell us to ride in the car? I'm definitely not answering. I decided to ignore it too. Father-in-law and I silently boarded the bus and continued to walk after getting off. This way is a shortcut. There's a slope here for a while. but let's do our best. With father-in-law occasionally giving advice, it felt like we were mountain climbing together. However, I hadn't planned on walking so much today and was wearing regular boots. Father-in-law was wearing leather shoes. This will surely hurt our feet. During the journey, I hardly spoke, but I did ask once. Father-in-law, are your feet okay? Won't walking for a long time in those shoes hurt your feet? Father-in-law glanced at my feet and squinted. I guess we're in the same boat. Making a woman walk such a long distance in those shoes, I can't believe her. Father-in-law sighed. We both thought of calling a taxi, but neither of us mentioned it, intending to spite mother-in-law. But Jennifer, you're strong. Walking such a long distance without complaining. Walter must have been attracted to that quality in you. Hearing that, I felt a little happy. Afterward, we continued to walk, buying drinks from vending machines and a grocery store to stay hydrated. About 3 hours later, as the sun began to set, we finally arrived at my in-laws' house. Their car was parked in front of the house. Mother-in-law and Walter must be home. We're back. As father-in-law opened the front door, Walter rushed over. Dad, Jennifer! I was worried. What happened? Why did you suddenly decide to walk back for exercise? Did you hear that from Mom? That's not it. Mom told Jennifer to walk back. Father-in-law said, looking understandably tired, as he sat down on a chair near the entrance. Mother-in-law, who had come out of the living room, was pale and gaping. No, that's not it, that's not it. It seems there was a misunderstanding. What was the misunderstanding? I couldn't keep quiet any longer. You said, since you can't ride in the car, why don't you walk back, didn't you? This was the plain truth. I hate lying. Thanks to that, I was reminded of my mountain climbing club days. A 3-hour one-way walk was good exercise. Walter looked back at mother-in-law. He knows well that I'm not the type to lie. The eyes of father-in-law, Walter, and I were all on mother-in-law. What? You believe this woman over me? We three are family. This woman is a stranger, right? You believe a stranger over your family? Mother-in-law screamed. So I was not allowed in the car because I'm a stranger. I said quietly. Mom, I can't believe you would say something like that. Jennifer is an important part of my family. I wanted you to feel the same way, Walter said, clenching his fist. His hand was trembling with anger. If you're going to treat Jennifer like this, I'm done with you, Mom. I won't answer your calls anymore. Don't contact Jennifer either. Walter took my hand and said, let's go. Walter, wait. Walter slammed the door and, without looking back, took my hand and started walking. A year later. Hey, Jennifer, Walter. Over here, you can see the view really well. Walter, father-in-law, and I were mountain climbing together. Walter received a transfer order 6 months later, and we moved back to our previous home. After the incident at the New Year's celebration, father-in-law decided to divorce and moved alone near our house. Climbing together on weekends had become a regular thing. Shall we have lunch here? At the summit, we eagerly began preparing our meal. While working, father-in-law started talking. Mom went on a spending spree after the divorce, even though the property division was done properly. It seems she's already in financial trouble. She might have been lonely. The divorce was tough, with all the crying and screaming. Putting some distance between us now is probably best for both of us. That's how it felt. She should expand her world too. Otherwise, she's the type to take out her stress on those close to her. I listened silently to their conversation. I'll cherish my own world, so I don't have to take out my stress on others. Looking at the view from the mountain with my precious family, I made that resolution in my heart. Mix some medication into Sophia's meals. Ethan remained silent. The medication is in the largest drawer of your study desk. Crush it into a fine powder so it's undetectable, and mix it into Sophia's meals. My husband Liam commanded his son Ethan in a demanding tone. Start today. But we've already finished dinner today. Ethan's voice was on the verge of tears. Then start with breakfast tomorrow, got it? But Ethan's voice trailed off as he hunched his back. Can't you follow your dad's orders? If you don't comply, I'll take away your cell phone and kick you out of the house. Are you okay with becoming homeless? Liam barked these words at Ethan, seemingly ending the call. He's ordering Ethan to mix medication into my meals. I felt my body shaking with fear and anger. My busy life was suddenly interrupted by Liam's entrance. But behind his sweet words hid a terrifying truth. I can't let such a man roam free. Knowing Liam's true nature, I decided to expose him dramatically and deliver justice. With my resolve set, I followed Liam out of the house after he went to work. My name is Sophia, and I am 50 years old. I married once when I was 30 but divorced 3 years later. I had no children. Since then, I've focused solely on my work. With many years of service, I now hold a responsible position. Last year, I bought an apartment with the money I'd saved over the years. I furnished it to my liking, creating my ideal space. Surrounded by my favorite things and engaged in a fulfilling job, I was living quite contentedly. However, in the midst of my busy life, I occasionally felt a sense of loneliness. I wondered if I would grow old alone. That's when I met a man. His name was Liam. He was 10 years my junior, at 40. Liam was a contact from one of my work clients. After several meetings, Liam asked me out to dinner. He was very forward and embarrassingly lavish in his praise of me. You're competent, composed, and precisely my ideal woman, Sophia. Even though I knew it was flattery, my heart, long distant from romance, fluttered. Liam's sweet words seemed to fill the emptiness within me. Perhaps I wanted to be praised as a woman more than being recognized for my work. Even after learning about my divorce, Liam continued his advances. Roses, surprise dinners, Liam expressed his love in many ways. Eventually, we started dating. After a while, Liam confided in me. Actually, I've been divorced too. And I have a son in high school. A son? I was surprised. I had no idea Liam had a child. Ours is a household without a mother. I was afraid you might dislike me if I told you. Liam said with an awkward look. He had been raising Ethan alone, struggling all this time. Since my divorce was due to my ex-wife's infidelity, Ethan and I have been desperately getting by. I do my best with household chores, but without a mother, I think Ethan feels lonely. Liam said, looking down. His words moved me. Far from disliking him, my affection for him only grew. Our relationship continued unchanged from there. Eventually, Liam formally proposed, and I accepted. The idea of suddenly becoming a mom was daunting. But I didn't want to let go of this connection I had found with Liam. I met Ethan for the first time. He was a quiet, earnest boy. Ethan was reserved, and our conversation didn't flow easily. Still, I was determined. If I was going to marry Liam, I would face Ethan as his mom with all my might. After the marriage, Liam and Ethan moved into my apartment, marking the start of our new life together. Originally, Liam and Ethan lived in a rented apartment. I'd like for us to live together in your apartment, Liam suggested, and I agreed. My apartment, bought after years of saving, was too large for just me, with unused rooms that would be perfect for a family. Initially, Liam helped with the household chores. However, over time, things changed. Liam stopped doing any housework altogether. Meanwhile, Ethan actively took on cooking, cleaning, and laundry. Ethan, let me do it today. You have schoolwork and other things, right? I would say, trying to be considerate. But Liam, unconcerned by our dynamics, would sit on the living room sofa, legs on the table, absorbed in his mobile phone. Liam, that table is my favorite. Could you please take your feet off? I asked. Silently, he complied, but his attention remained fixed on his phone. I took care of the laundry piling up and cleaned the room. But Liam didn't lift a finger to help. "Hey, if you're not busy, could you do the dishes?" I ventured to ask Liam, who had been sitting all this while. He made a displeased face. "I'm tired today." "I'm tired from work too," I retorted. Reluctantly, Liam got up, hastily finished the dishes, and retreated to the toilet with his mobile phone. "Before we were married, I fight with the household chores every day," Liam claimed. But now, he does nothing. All the household tasks are left to Ethan and I. Perhaps Liam had always left the housework to Ethan, even before marrying me. Ethan, a high schooler, is skilled in cooking and cleaning, almost like a housewife. It seems Liam had been treating Ethan more like a housekeeper than a son. My distrust towards Liam grew day by day. And just like that, 6 months passed into our marriage. Around that time, Liam's return home became increasingly late. I also have late work days, but I never come home after the date changes. However, Liam would sometimes return around 2 a.m. This was never the case before. I spoke to Liam when he came home late. "Tired from work? Is it that busy?" "Yeah. Work commitments are tough," he said before quickly heading to take a shower. "I'll go to bed first then." I said this and went to the bedroom. After that, I couldn't quite fall asleep. I waited for Liam, but he never came. Trying not to make any noise, I quietly went to the living room. There, Liam was sitting on the sofa in the dim room, looking at his mobile phone. He occasionally smiled while looking at the screen and typed something. He might be messaging someone. "Liam," I decided to speak up. Startled, Liam pocketed his phone. "What? Don't scare me like that." Liam said this in an annoyed tone. "I was waiting for you, and you never came, so I got worried," I said, and Liam sighed heavily and stood up. He went to the bedroom without a word. "Good night," he said and quickly lay in bed, turning his back to me and starting to sleep. Good night. Watching Liam's back, I thought. I married Liam because I felt lonely being alone, but why do I still feel so alone now? Liam, who praised and approached me when we met and during our courtship, has become cold as if he's a different person. I understand that attitudes can change after marriage. Still, Liam seems to have no interest in me. Even though we haven't been married long, Liam hardly tries to talk to me. He comes home late and is always absorbed in his mobile phone. Then one day, "I'll be going on a business trip next week." A business trip? For how many nights? 2 nights, 3 days. It was the first time Liam mentioned going on a business trip. Though he always came home late, hearing about an overnight trip made me anxious. "Take care, have a good trip." On the morning of the trip, as I saw him off, Liam nodded lightly and left the house. Maybe it was the anxiety, or perhaps it was the exhaustion from work, but I felt dizzy that morning. After seeing off Liam, the dizziness persisted, but I managed to prepare and head to work. Coming home from work that night, Ethan had prepared dinner. It was Wednesday. Wednesday was usually a day for late work due to overtime, but I came home early today because I wasn't feeling well. "Ethan, thank you. This really helps." Ethan continued cooking silently. Eventually, Ethan and I began to eat dinner together. The seasoning in Ethan's cooking was quite strong, with a heavy use of ham and sausage. "It's so salty," I thought, but I didn't say anything and ate with gratitude for Ethan's effort. It was a meal Ethan had worked hard on, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings by complaining. "This is good, thank you." I said this, and Ethan, looking down, nodded slightly and continued to eat quietly. Ethan is a high school student who sweats a lot, so maybe he prefers his food this salty. "Ethan, you must be busy too, so you don't have to go out of your way to make meals. I'll quickly whip something up when I get back from work." Okay. We continued such conversations while finishing our meal. As we relaxed on the sofa, Ethan's mobile phone rang. "It's Dad," Ethan said, putting the phone to his ear and hastily heading to his room. I was a bit surprised since I expected Ethan to take the call in the living room. Being a high school student, maybe Ethan feels embarrassed about me hearing his conversations with Dad. Thinking this, I stood up to start washing the dishes. Still, why would Liam call Ethan from his business trip? Washing the dishes, I became increasingly curious. I turned off the tap, dried my hands, and quietly approached Ethan's room. I could hear the conversation through the door. Trying not to make any noise, I cracked open the door a bit. Ethan was standing in the middle of the room, back to the door, talking. The volume was loud enough for me to hear Liam's voice through the phone. I froze in shock upon hearing Liam's words. "Isn't Sophia supposed to be at work late today? Is she already home?" Then Liam's voice came again. "Keep making meals with a lot of salt, all right?" Ethan listened silently. "Use a lot of ham and sausage because they're high in salt." "I used them today because there were plenty in the fridge," Ethan replied in a small, reluctant voice. "That's good. It will gradually worsen Sophia's illness." "What?" I was terrified. Stunned, I heard more unbelievable words. "Mix some medication into Sophia's meals." Ethan remained silent. "The medication is in the largest drawer of your study desk. Crush it into a fine powder so it's undetectable, and mix it into her meals," Liam ordered Ethan in a demanding tone. "Start today." "We've already finished dinner today." Ethan's voice was on the verge of tears. "Then, start with breakfast tomorrow, got it?" "But, Ethan's voice was muffled, his back hunched. "Can't you follow your dad's orders? If not, I'll take away your mobile phone and kick you out of the house. Are you okay with becoming homeless?" Liam shouted this at Ethan and seemed to hang up the phone. Ethan sighed heavily and sat down on the spot. Then, he opened the drawer of his study desk. Inside, there were boxes that looked like medication in abundance. Ethan looked at them for a while, but then slammed the drawer shut and lay down on the spot. I quietly left the room and sat on the living room sofa, careful not to alert Ethan. There was no message from Liam on my mobile phone. Recalling the conversation, I felt terrified. Then, I heard Ethan's footsteps as he returned from his room to the living room. I quickly turned on the TV and pretended to be focused on it. Ethan's face was pale. His lips colorless, and he wouldn't look up at me. "Liam calling is unusual, isn't it?" I said to Ethan. "Yeah." Ethan sat down away from me, still holding his mobile phone. Seeing Ethan looking distressed and silent, I felt unbearable. "Hey Ethan, want to play a card game?" "What?" "Since it's just the two of us tonight, let's play some card games for fun." Ethan was just bewildered. He didn't know a single rule of any card game. Hearing this, I realized. Ethan probably never experienced family time. Everyone has at least once played card games or similar with their family. But Ethan had no such memories. Upon asking, Ethan had never played any board games either. I couldn't help but feel sympathy for Ethan's life so far. No childlike memories, yet he had skills in cooking and cleaning. That night, I taught Ethan the rules and we played card games. Ethan's stiff expression gradually turned into smiles, and he began to get absorbed in the game. Thus, Ethan and I played together late into the night. Before going to bed, I kept thinking about what Liam had said over the phone. Knowing Liam's terrifying side, I couldn't sleep due to anxiety. But since I had overheard Ethan and Liam's conversation, there was nothing I could immediately do. My mind in a state of panic, I spent the night almost sleepless. The next morning, when I woke up, Ethan was already in the living room. Tears were in his eyes. "Sorry, Mom." Actually, For the first time, Ethan called me Mom. In Ethan's outstretched right hand was a box of medication. "Dad gave this to me. He said to mix it into Mom's meals," Ethan said, crying. "But I don't want to do this." Ethan broke down in tears and sat on the floor. I took the box of medication from Ethan and looked at the description on the back. It was a medication for low blood pressure. In fact, I have quite high blood pressure. I've been warned by a doctor to be careful. Liam should know about my condition. Yet, he was trying to make me take medication that would raise my blood pressure. According to Ethan, he had been instructed to use ingredients high in salt to increase my blood pressure. He was ordered to use ham, sausage, bacon instead of meat. Unbelievable. I was astounded. Thinking back, my recent poor health could be due to excessive salt intake. "I'm sorry, really sorry." Ethan apologized to me repeatedly. I felt terribly sorry for Ethan, who had been forced into such a dreadful situation. At the same time, anger towards Liam welled up inside me. I called Liam's company. I tried to find out where he was staying. However, a colleague of Liam's gave me a surprising answer.
Liam is supposed to be on vacation for a family trip,
he said, sounding puzzled. I didn't pursue it further, made an excuse, thanked him, and hung up quickly. Was the business trip a lie? Then, he might be staying overnight with someone else. Eventually, Liam returned home from his supposed business trip.
Welcome back,
I greeted Liam at the entrance.
Was it tough?
Sort of, he answered, looking down.
What kind of work did you do?
I asked him about his trip in detail. Liam answered reluctantly, looking annoyed. Then he escaped to take a shower. I opened Liam's bag. Inside, I found 2 amusement park tickets. When Liam came out of the shower, I showed him the tickets.
What's this?
Liam's face suddenly turned frantic, and he started to get angry at me.
Hey! Did you open my bag without permission? I was about to do laundry and thought I'd wash yours too,
I said, and Liam, unable to retort, sat on the sofa, drying his wet hair with a towel.
Who did you go to the amusement park with during your business trip? A client,
Liam answered with a troubled look.
What kind of person? What do you mean? A man. How old?
I persisted.
The same age as me,
Liam answered in a low voice.
So, 2 men went to the amusement park?
When I laughed and retorted, Liam looked uncomfortable.
Did the 2 of you eat ice cream and churros? What about the Ferris wheel? Did you ride the roller coaster? Did you have fun?
I bombarded Liam with questions, cornering him. Then, Liam escaped to the bathroom as if running away from me. As soon as I realized the business trip was a lie, I had hired a detective to investigate Liam. Soon after, I was shocked to learn from the detective that Liam was having an affair. His mistress, Scarlett, was the president of a company and, like me, had a history of divorce. According to the detective, Liam met Scarlett through dating apps. Liam had visited Scarlett's high-rise condominium several times. For the 3 days he lied about being on a business trip, it seems Scarlett paid for a stay in a luxury hotel. They went to an amusement park nearby and enjoyed themselves before returning. When the detective showed me photos of Liam and Scarlett,
the couple was hugging each other the whole time and stood out,
an amusement park staff member testified. Liam targeted me because I owned an apartment and had a decent amount of savings. However, after our marriage, he met Scarlett, who was wealthier than me. Liam, finding me unnecessary, attempted to worsen my health by giving me medication to raise my blood pressure and feeding me meals high in salt. And he didn't do it himself, he coerced Ethan, still a child, into doing it. If I fell ill and was hospitalized,
it turns out I'm not compatible with Sophia, who is much older. I want to break up.
That seemed to be his plan. A detective nearby overheard Liam boasting to a friend at a pub. It's easy to deceive older women. A little praise and they're delighted. Plus, a woman with more money than me is convenient. She provides housing, and most of all, she has an inferiority complex about being older than me, making her easy to exploit. The detective recorded Liam's conversation with his friend nearby. Hearing that recording, I was devastated. At the same time, I began to think of a way to get revenge on Liam. One day, I ambushed Liam in front of his company. Liam walked a bit from his company to meet Scarlett, and they headed to a restaurant. Scarlett, being a president, was well-dressed and looked younger than her age. Just before Liam and Scarlett entered the restaurant, I approached them.
Liam. Sophia?
Liam froze in surprise upon seeing me.
Pleased to meet you, I'm his wife, Sophia.
As I greeted Scarlett, she too was lost for words in shock.
I know about the affair between you two,
I said loudly, causing passers-by to turn their attention to Liam and Scarlett in surprise. Both of them looked awkward and embarrassed.
The business trip was a lie, and I know everything about the 2 of you going to the hotel.
As I said this,
Sophia, why?
Liam whispered. Liam was shocked that I knew everything.
Scarlett, it's odd for me to say this, but you shouldn't be used by a man like him.
Used? Scarlett furrowed her brows. I took out my mobile phone and played the recording. It's easy to deceive older women. Just praise them a little, and they're overjoyed. Plus, a woman with more money than me is convenient. She provides housing, and most importantly, she feels inferior because she's older than me, making her easy to exploit. Liam's voice filled the air loudly. Hearing this, Liam was stunned. And Scarlett gaped at Liam. Scarlett, this is who Liam truly is. You may be the other woman and an enemy to me, but as a fellow woman, I advise you not to be used by Liam any longer. Scarlett turned her anger towards Liam.
Liam, you said I was the ideal, perfect woman you've always dreamed of.
Hearing this, I said with a cold expression.
He told me the exact same thing.
Liam, getting sharp looks from both Scarlett and me, was shaken.
And may I also add, if Liam meets a woman wealthier than you, you'll be the one getting medicated. Medicated? Yes. I have high blood pressure, but Liam bought medication that raises blood pressure for people with low pressure and ordered his son to mix it into my meals.
As I said this, Liam was dumbfounded. He probably didn't expect me to know this much. Scarlett curiously said to Liam,
What is that? How terrifying. Are you really such a person? You're the worst.
In the crowded street, Scarlett berated Liam, who hung his head in shame and remained silent.
I'm breaking up with you. Don't ever show yourself to me again.
With that, Scarlett walked away from us. Back home, I took Liam in front of Ethan and made him apologize.
Apologize to Ethan for everything you've done.
I'm sorry.
That's not enough. Apologize properly.
I sincerely apologize, Liam said loudly. Ethan looked bewildered.
Tricking women for money and forcing Ethan to mix medication into their meals? Do you realize how much pain you've caused Ethan?
I scolded Liam.
Liam, you're a disgrace as a father. Making Ethan do all the household chores and using him.
Then Ethan, who had been silent until now, followed up by saying, I'm not like Dad. I don't want to be like him. I don't want to follow his orders. Ethan yelled at Liam with tears in his eyes, expressing his anger. Liam hung his head in shame. For the first time, Ethan had fought back Liam.
Well done.
And I hugged his shoulder. The day after Liam went to work, I left the house a little later. I had informed my workplace that I would be taking a day off. My destination was Liam's workplace.
Good day, I'm Liam's wife.
Liam was taken aback and stood up in a hurry as I suddenly arrived at his workplace.
Recently, Liam took 3 days off claiming it was for a family trip. Actually, that was a lie.
As I said this, all of Liam's colleagues turned their attention to me.
He told his family he was on a business trip, but he actually went on a trip with his mistress.
The room buzzed with murmurs and then grew noisy.
Liam wanted me out of the way because he had a mistress, so he ordered our son to mix medication that raises blood pressure into my food. He planned to make my high blood pressure worsen so I'd be hospitalized, and then he would divorce me to marry his mistress.
As I spoke, Liam's colleagues looked horrified.
Today, my son will also testify. Ethan.
I called, and Ethan appeared in the office. It happened to be a school holiday for Ethan. I had asked Ethan to come with me.
I was ordered by Dad to mix this medication into Mom's food,
Ethan said, lifting a large amount of medication to show everyone. Screams erupted in the office. Liam's colleague said,
Liam was such a person?
The worst. Poor wife and son.
They criticized Liam unanimously. Liam, too embarrassed to lift his head, looked down at the ground.
Employing such a person could reflect badly on this company,
I declared, took the boxes of medication from Ethan, and stacked them all on Liam's desk. Soon, a large pile of medication boxes was built on Liam's desk. Liam watched silently, his face pale.
All right then, we'll be leaving now.
Ethan and I headed towards the office exit. Left behind, Liam faced everyone's stares, sweating profusely and looking down. I reported Liam to the police and the child welfare services. After discussions, it was decided that it would be dangerous for Ethan to continue living with Liam. With the help of a detective, I tracked down Liam's ex-wife, Olivia. Upon meeting her, she revealed that their divorce was not due to her but because of Liam's infidelity. Liam had forcibly taken Ethan and strictly prohibited any contact between Ethan and Olivia. Olivia, threatened by Liam, had lived without seeing Ethan until now.
I'm still single and have been working and living independently. I want to take Ethan and raise him from now on,
she insisted. Ethan also wished for this, so it was decided that Ethan would live with Olivia. I divorced Liam and claimed compensation in the divorce proceedings. Liam was fired from his job, but he had the obligation to pay the compensation and child support for Ethan, quickly depleting his savings. Struggling to find a new job, Liam ended up working at a construction site. Now, looking haggard from unfamiliar labor, he appears much older than his actual age, which is 40. With his current appearance, it's unlikely that any older woman would be swayed by his sweet talk. Without any disposable income, Liam lives a life devoid of pleasure or hope. After the divorce, I started living alone again. Focusing on my work, I also decided to participate in volunteer work. My interaction with Ethan inspired me to engage in activities that could help children. I started working as a staff member for a program that helps children with their studies. The children I met there look forward to studying and having meals together once a week. Some of them can't afford tutoring due to family circumstances, or come home to an empty house. I continue my efforts, hoping to be of some help to these children. Ethan occasionally sends me texts. He has shared that he feels more secure living with Olivia than when he was with Liam.
I plan to go to college, even if it means taking out student loans. Once I'm a college student, I'd like to join that volunteer program too. And thank you for teaching me the rules of card games.
Ethan sent me this heartwarming text. I live my days earnestly, looking forward to the day I can work alongside Ethan in our activities.